shows. We are not showing live yet.
I've got it on my end, coming up live.
Oh, it's coming up live? Okay. Then I will not worry about it. Okay. Then I guess we are ready to go. Welcome everyone to the September 29th, 2020 meeting of the Edgemont Board of Education. Do I have a motion to bring us out of exec into public session? Nilesh, second. Monica, all in favor? All right, we are in public session at 7:35. Okay, first order of business for tonight is the approval of the September 15th minutes. Do I have a motion to approve? Nilesh, second. Marquita, all in favor? The minutes are approved. Okay, thank you. Next up is the approval of the Treasurer's Report for August of 2020. Do I have a motion to approve? Jennifer, second. Monica, all in favor? Okay, the Treasurer's Report is approved. Thank you. Okay, so next up is recognition of community. So just a couple brief comments before I turn it over to the administration. First of all, as has been our practice of late, in terms of questions, comments, the instructions for how to join this meeting has the usual link to the questions where you can post them, and we'll get to those after the superintendent's report. But I also just want to, and I'm going to sound like a broken record as we go on, but I just want to once again thank the entire community, teachers, students, custodial, clerical, administration, just everyone, because again, we've now successfully made it through, just over 2 weeks, and I really, nothing is perfect, but I really don't think we could have reasonably expected it to go this well. So, and I know I've gotten personally just lots of really good feedback in terms of how, pleased people are. I mean, there are always things that we can do better, and we're always looking to do that. But I couldn't be more pleased with how it's gone to date. And so I just want to thank everyone in the community, because it really does take everyone doing their piece to make it work, because any one group doesn't, and it all sort of falls apart. So thank you all. And with that, I will turn it over to Victoria.
Yes, thank you so much, Alec, and thanks to all the community members who have been reaching out and giving us feedback. We're very appreciative. I would like to invite Kyle Hosier to talk about the commended students for National Merit and for the NYSSMA All-State Performing Ensemble.
Hi, good evening, everyone. It's my pleasure to recognize 21 Edgemont students who have been honored in the National Merit Scholarship Program. These commended students placed among the top 50,000 scorers of the 1.5 million students who took the 2019 PSAT National Merit Scholarship Qualifying Test. Our commended students are Amaya Bakshi, Ella Budell, Evan Cohen, Alexander Dolal, Sam Feldman, Justin Gao, Oliver Go, Tylena Guo, Hannah Gutenberg, Christopher Hunt, Jay Jang, Shuban Kajini, Isabel Corman, Ethan Lee, Matthew McCormick, Kaylee Ridman, Matthew Sadowski, Anthony Saro, Uma Salva, Gavin Stern, and Eric Wayne. Congratulations to each of our students. I'm also pleased to announce that 2 of our students were selected to participate in the 2020 NYSSMA All-State Performing Ensemble. Emily Jeong was selected for Violin Symphony Orchestra, and Jamie Coffin was selected for Alto 2 Treble Chorus. Unfortunately, with the NYSSMA Winter Conference has been canceled, though a virtual all-state concert is planned. Congratulations to Emily, Jamie, Mr. Cadoliato, Ms. Morse, and Ms. Brittany Chen Robinson. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hosier, and thank you to all of the teachers who make this possible, and of course to all of the students for your hard work and dedication. You make us all proud all the time. So talking about moving with the times, we thank the PTSA for their generous gifts. First of face masks for the class of 2021, and also for, that was $1,800 and $2,000 for Labster virtual labs. So we thank them for providing what is necessary for the students this school year, and appreciate their generosity and support for all the time. And I ask the board to accept their generous gifts.
Do we have a motion to approve? I see Marquita, second Judy, all in favor? It is approved. And once again, I want to echo Victoria's comments. We are always so grateful for the help that we get from our friends of groups, particularly the PTA and the PTSA, who told us things particularly important in a year like this when we're, squeezed even more than usual. So thank you so much for your generosity.
Hi, Alec, can I just put in a word here?
Of course.
So this Labster program, for those of who don't know, it's the virtual lab program that we are running. The school identified this program for, it simulates the lab environment, and whatever I've heard from the STEM community, I feel delighted to have this program, and thanks to PTSA for supporting that. So I've heard some great feedback on this program. So thanks again.
That's great. Thank you, Nilesh. All right, I believe we are now on to the superintendent's report.
Yes, thank you. It's my pleasure to begin with the announcement of the Edgemont faculty members who are in their final year of state mandated probationary period before tenure may be granted. So this entire year, the teachers will undergo a continuation of the annual professional performance review, which includes formal, informal, announced, unannounced observations by a series of administrators. Also, since these teachers have been here for a number of years, and now most in their 4th year of their probationary years, we have received feedback, and we always encourage students and families to give feedback on not only these teachers, but on all teachers, all administrators, and anything that's happening in the district that would help us to learn and grow is always welcome. So the teachers this year are Kelly Blair at Greenville School, Andrea Nash, who's in a district-wide position, Mark Nowak, science teacher at Edgemont Junior Senior High School, Gina Kim, science teacher at Edgemont Junior Senior High School, April Waltersdorf, music teacher at Sealy Place, Jennifer Coppola, elementary education teacher at Sealy Place, Sonia Sheridan, teacher of English to speakers of other languages at Greenville School, and Danielle Monica, elementary education at Greenville School. So the press release that will be shared with the Scarsdale Inquirer and posted on the district website is also attached to the board docs. And I think it's just so important for us as a community. I know a community of teachers, and we have mentors and teachers working together, but it's also important for us as a community to communicate about how things are going. And I know our presentations this evening too are based on feedback and also based on continued communication. So I just ask if any board members have any questions at this point.
Anyone have anything for Victoria? Yeah, Marikita.
Just Victoria, can you remind us the timeline? So it gets released now, and then the representations or proposals for tenure happen when?
We expect to do that on April 20th. So a few months into the school year, we will review the teachers' progress and performance with the Board of Education during an executive session. As administrators, we confer with how it's going, not only with the teachers who are eligible for tenure at the end of this school year, but also all of the teachers who are new to the district, and teachers who are in a variety of stages in their probationary period, and also for tenure teachers. We have lots of conversations with people who are learning, especially in this hybrid environment and virtual environment. We are all learners. So really, your experience levels don't help a whole lot right about now as we're learning a lot, even all of the leaders. We are all learning in this new environment. Thanks for asking, Marikita.
Anyone else? All right, thank you very much. Yes.
Thank you. The next will be a presentation, and we are so excited to have Jennifer Barella, teacher at Sealy Place, joining us. It will be a bit of a tag team presentation with Michael Curtin, Director of Curriculum and Instruction, Paul Garifano, Director of Technology, and Jennifer Barella for a fourth grade teacher and just doing a terrific job in hybrid. So let me present.
Victoria, do you want to present or shall I?
Oh, I would love it. Do you want to? That would be fine.
Yeah, just that way I can advance the slides, you know, sort of.
Or at your pace. That's a great idea. Thanks, Mike.
Okay, well, just let me find which window it was. Let's see here. Oops, okay. There, you saw the whole thing backwards. So can everyone see my screen now? Hybrid learning update, Edgemont Union Free School District.
Oh, Mike, you know why I realized I was probably trying to present first? I was going to start with the health and safety update.
Oh my, I'm
but
so
why don't we
sorry.
reverse? No, but let's reverse. Now that this is up, let's do hybrid learning and then we'll do health and safety.
Okay, I'm so sorry.
No, that's okay.
Okay, well, anyway, welcome everyone. I hope you're having a good evening. We just wanted to take a few minutes this evening to bring the board and the community up to date on our rollout of our hybrid learning plan that we devised this summer. And we're now about 2 weeks in. We wanted to share with you some of what's happening in classrooms, both physical and virtual, and talk about some of the things that we're thinking about going forward and some of the challenges that we've encountered. So as I mentioned, this summer we created the document on the left-hand side of the screen, the Edgemont hybrid learning model. And the idea was to create a vision for what instruction would look like this year that everyone could use as their North Star. That teachers, parents, students, we all could agree this is more or less, in a very broad and general sense, the way schooling will look in this sort of brave new world of hybrid learning. And I won't go through the whole thing, but I will highlight that, you know, an important goal is right there, the first bullet under instruction, that our vision for kids when they're working at home is that they are remote but connected. And that brings me to the document on the right-hand side of the screen. There's a lot of information there. It's really not meant to be consumed by anyone save for teachers, but I thought I would share it because it really, I designed it to demonstrate what remote but connected means. And you'll see that it's sort of a continuum. And I have to give credit to Greenville assistant principal, Marisa Ferrara. It was her idea to represent it this way. So I really appreciate her partnership there. But we wanted to illustrate that there's a continuum from no student support at all, where you're really just giving kids work, that they complete on their own schedule, under their own sort of guidance with little or no support from the teacher, which we commonly call this homework. And at the other end would be either in person, being in person there with the teacher in class, doing work, having the ability to ask questions, having some structure there, or if you're at home, having a fully synchronous live streamed class. And what we've explained to people is that what remote but connected means is neither of those two extremes, but somewhere in the middle. So in that middle section, you see all different things that teachers can do, both remote and in person, that translate into giving kids working at home some structure, some opportunities to collaborate with their teacher and their peers, and some level of support. And that's our sort of aspirational goal for what remote but connected looks like. And I just stress that it is aspirational. No one entertained the idea that on the first day of school this year that we would be up and running completely, everything functioning perfectly with this model. Instead, we view this as a vision where we want to be, not necessarily where we are right now. So we certainly have some room to grow, although I have to say I've been incredibly impressed by the work I've seen our teachers and students doing as I walk around the buildings. And now I sort of want to take you on a little bit of a virtual walk around the buildings to just share some photographs of instruction that's been happening around the district. You'll see on this page some shots from a number of, from all three schools. At Greenville, a first grade class where the teacher is working with a cohort in the classroom, and also having a synchronous interaction with a cohort working from home. It's very tricky. Our teachers have spent a lot of time moving the cameras around in their rooms, trying to figure out what's the best way to kind of keep each group engaged and able to see everything. At Sealy, for another first grade classroom at Sealy Place, the teacher had a really wonderful way to start the day for the kids. She kind of checks in with the remote learners right at the start of the day, and her students in class are doing a STEAM Lego project while she has an opportunity to just kind of catch up. How did the night go? How's everyone doing? The fourth grade classroom, there's one of our fourth grade Greenville teachers with her document camera, her laptop, and her desktop computer. Some of these classrooms are starting to look like mission control with all the technology at the teacher's desk, but we're finding ways to make it work. And at the opposite end from mission control, we have EHS band rehearsal, which happened outside on several nice days. And this is how they're rehearsing, maintaining social distance and practicing outside. There's Mr. Cataliato working with his students. And unfortunately today, when it was rainy, they were working inside doing drumming on plastic pails, which was kind of cool. We have here a kindergarten classroom, Ms. Mazzio working with her kindergarten students, and also at EHS, you can see Ms. Goodliff working to kind of check in with her remote students. A lot of teachers, for whatever reason, really like this, having the kids at home on the smart board or the Promethean board and able to see their peers at their desk and vice versa. That for whatever reason, they found that really kind of engages the students on both sides of the camera. But there you see Ms. Goodliff kind of checking in with some of the students at home. It really is, people have taken to it very naturally, surprisingly naturally, where they're able to take these pauses and quickly say, how's everyone doing out there? You know, or do you guys have any questions? And really kind of, I wouldn't say it's seamless yet. It's only 2 weeks in, but they've certainly done a really nice job integrating these two worlds. You see a shot of our students arriving at Greenville, and then also we incorporate mask breaks into our schedules in the elementary schools where students can go outside and spend a little time free from their masks. So we also wanted to share what it looks like sort of on the virtual side. And I'll be kind of, well, I'll start by just pointing out what's on the right-hand side of the screen. one very popular program that our teachers have been using is Bitmoji Classroom. This is like an interactive virtual classroom. It's not just a picture and a Bitmoji of the teacher, in this case, Ms. Mazzio, but rather every poster, all those letters across the top of the board there, those are all interactive. The kids click on them. So for example, with the letters, they bring up the associated foundations, which is our phonics program. Each of those letters brings up the associated foundations lesson that goes with that letter. The little bookshelf next to her, I believe, brings up virtual manipulatives. So everything kind of serves a purpose. The books in the bookshelf are actually links to YouTube videos of literature read alouds, excuse me. So that's been one really engaging way that some of our teachers have organized their online classroom for at-home learners. And certainly for our younger elementary students, this is really appealing. At this point, I'm going to turn it over to Sealy Place fourth grade teacher, Jen Barella, who's going to talk about two of the different things that she and her peers have done on this slide and the following slide. I'm just so grateful, Jen, for your being here tonight, giving up your evening to come and share what you're doing, especially when it's so new. So I really applaud your willingness to share and your whole team's willingness. So Jen, you want to just say a couple of words about what we're looking at?
Sure, absolutely. You can hear me okay?
Yes.
You need to speak up a little bit more, I think.
Okay, is that better? Is that good?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much for having me tonight. I'm really excited to share a couple of platforms that the fourth grade team at CLA has been using. The first one is Padlet, and this is a board that has allowed students to post notes on a common page. So you can see on the screen that they were talking about geography landforms. And this is a great way for students to talk about what they read about, give opinions on things that they read. This Padlet was about landforms, but there was one that we had done earlier in the year, only 2 weeks ago. I feel like we've been in school a lot longer. 2 weeks ago, and we discussed what we were wondering about as far as the school year. And it was just a great way for students to kind of see how everyone's feeling about the year. So I started off just wondering what my students were feeling and thinking. Another student wondered if they were going to be able to have snack. Equally important wonder, but it's just a nice way for students to connect with each other, whether they're at their remote location or in the classroom. They can also comment to each other. They can leave photos under their writing. So it's a fun way to leave very quick kind of notes. We found a lot of success with this in the spring. And so in the fall, we were excited just to jump right in and get started. And the kids love it. The teachers, we love it because we can easily see who's responded, what they're thinking about. So Padlet has been really helpful for us in really a lot of different subject areas. And then Flipgrid is also a platform that our team started to use in the spring. Our team is very, very much invested in the STEM program or STEAM. So we didn't want to lose that. And we found that Flipgrid was a way in which students could continue with their STEM projects at home and then record short videos to share with us what they did, show us their projects. We are also able to record our directions. The kids can see us. So this has been a really nice way for students to still have that face-to-face through the technology piece. Just recently, last week, we did the paper airplane challenge. So the students went home, they were given materials, they built their paper airplanes, and then they recorded themselves launching the paper airplanes and then answering a few questions. We were then able to watch the videos together in the classroom. And then those remote only students are able to also participate. So Flipgrid is a great site. The kids love it. They're able to put their little emojis around it and make borders. Those are all really important things to a fourth grader. So again, just something else that keeps kids excited and wanting to share their thoughts and their ideas. So Flipgrid and Padlet have been really great for the fourth grade.
Thanks so much, Jen. And I just point out that I think both of those are great examples of what I was talking about a few minutes ago, of that idea of being remote but connected. Kids working on these things at home are still having comments and seeing comments and asking questions and interacting with their peers and their teachers, even though it's not synchronous live streaming. It is still an opportunity for them throughout the day. They have opportunities like this to stay connected, and that's really what we're aiming for. The last example on the page here is one from, I think, the Greenville fourth grade, where a key part of our literacy program has been keeping readers' notebooks, which is actually exactly what it sounds like. It's a place where kids, as part of their reading instruction, write reactions to what they're reading and write about their sort of reading life. That was very difficult in this situation. So with Shelley Klein, I think, helped us and our reading teachers with developing these digital readers notebooks, which are actually like Google Slides presentations, but where the kids make entries on each page, and there's usually a model, as there is here, that the teachers provided. It does not just reflecting on your reading life, but they could be very specific questions about whatever independent reading book they're doing or whatever they're studying as part of their independent, as part of their reading mini lessons and so on. So these are just a few examples. We wanted to give you a little bit of a flavor of what school is like in 2020 in Edgemont. Again, I just can't say enough how impressed I am at the creativity and the commitment and the caring with which our teachers have really attacked this incredibly difficult task. With that, now we're going to turn a little bit to what are the things we're thinking about going forward. Obviously, I said we didn't expect we'd get this all on day one. So the question is, well, what are the things that we're working on? What are the things that we're looking at? And we're going to really kind of talk on two levels. One is the sort of technological challenges, and I'll invite Mr. Garofano in just a second to share a little bit about those. And then I'll talk, and Dr. Newell will talk as well about some of the instructional challenges and what we're doing to kind of work through those. So without further ado, Mr. Garofano.
Incredibly busy. Again, she was gracious enough to give up part of her evening tonight to give us some insight into these technologies. And Jen, like so many of our teachers, have really just taken the leap forward. Between the couple of examples that she gave, I can think of 8 or 9 other applications that we weren't even using this time last year. And
Hard to hear.
we're only in the second week of school. And it's just amazing the development that the students. Yep. Sorry, I have my earpiece in. I'll take it out.
How's that? Is that a little bit better?
Yeah,
Better.
much louder. Yep, thanks.
Okay. So it's just amazing to see the development that we've made in just a few short weeks with all of these applications and the hybrid learning model, and just the inventions that happen on a daily basis. So Jen, we applaud your efforts and all of the teachers that have really just put their best foot forward here. So with that being said, there are challenges that seem to arise on a daily basis. A number of them are outlined here around professional development for the new technologies, making time to support the faculty and support the students and their families at home, right? As these technologies come up, it's not just a matter of supporting the faculty, but also providing support for our in-class students and our remote learners. We still have some bandwidth limitations that we're hoping will begin to be alleviated in the next over the next month through the Lyric. And that does have some, it has impact on a number of things, including the virtual collaboration, which the teachers really pivoted from day one when we told them that there were some bandwidth conservation measures being put in place, and they've really made the best of that situation. We're well aware that, there are some sound quality issues for remote and in-class students. An issue that we've been testing out some different technologies, and we're just on the precipice of rolling out some new devices that will hopefully alleviate any of those issues. Supporting our remote learners, while we support all of our faculty and students and staff in school, the real-time technical support for the hybrid classroom. I always say, or my staff and I always say every issue that's open in our service desk is important, but we do prioritize. But now it's really high priority, right? Like if a document camera doesn't work or an interactive panel doesn't work, I mean, that really, really impacts the hybrid model. So that's something the technology department is really cognizant of, and we're trying to make improvements on that on a daily basis. And we're also aware of, we have an issue with loaner devices, and we're doing the best we can to repair devices as they come in, and make the best of the devices that we have. So these are issues that are on our radar. They're either in the process of being resolved, or we have a plan moving forward. And I guess I'll turn it back over to you, Mike.
Thank you, Mr. Garofano. So those are sort of the technology challenges that we're working through. These are the two sort of broad instructional challenges or not even challenges, but issues that we're kind of working through, and they're big ones. The first is really how to best engage our remote-only students. It's a huge challenge as a former teacher. I can't imagine what that's like to try to, especially on the elementary level, to try to keep a group of kids who are actually not physically with you all day engaged. And part of the challenge with that too is that to be really successful as a remote learner in any capacity, full-time or part-time, you really have to have highly developed executive function skills. People oftentimes explain executive function skills as the part of your brain that acts like a air traffic controller. When you have all these different thoughts and tasks and ideas floating around, you have to be able to organize and prioritize and evaluate and form strategies and reflect on your strategies and set goals. And those are sort of the things that I just named are really all different aspects of executive function. And without a teacher there to help you and coach you throughout the day on how to work through those tasks, we've put a lot more of the responsibility for learning on students and also their parents. And so a big challenge for the remote-only students is really how do we develop their capacity to learn independently and to work through activities independently with some, but not the same level of support that they would normally see in the classroom. And then just as I mentioned before, just the whole task of keeping them engaged is very difficult, especially given the fact that you have to be very conscious of, not doing the same thing when you have a different cohort in front of you that you did in the morning, because for them, it's still the same teacher, same class. So it's been a real challenge. We're looking at some different ways that we might address that and try to integrate them a little bit more completely into the flow of the school day. But we will have more information to share on that going forward. We don't have any specifics tonight, but we are aware of that as an issue and are looking at some various solutions. So with that, I'll turn it over to Dr. Newell to talk about our youngest learners in grades K through 2.
Great, thank you, Mr. Curtin. As Mike said, we're studying these two topics at the same time. So what we know that they're both important. In terms of the K2 full day, you remember as part of our reopening plan, when we knew because of space issues and because of not knowing how so many of our health and safety protocols were going to roll out with our youngest learners, that we wanted some time to make a good decision and recommendation regarding our K2 students. What we do know is that our youngest students do best when they are in person. We were just listening to some of the challenges of remote instruction for our youngest students. But as we launch, and I talk a little bit about our timeline to study this, I also didn't want to paint a rosy picture that for K through 2, they would be coming back to classrooms that look like pre-COVID. They wouldn't. We still very much have to maintain our 6-foot distance between desks. Everyone still will be masked. So that means even if we can bring additional students back, they wouldn't all fit into a regular classroom. So just some examples of what it might look like. Again, we're not ready to talk about this in detail, but it could be a teacher in a gymnasium. It could be, a 2nd grade teacher with their 21 students in a gymnasium, because 21 students, 22 students would not fit in a regular classroom. Or it could be the teacher in one classroom with some of the students and a teacher aide in the other classroom doing some facilitating at the teacher's direction. And then they could switch. Districts have done it differently. For example, the children switch the room they're in day to day. The classroom teacher switches with the teacher aide. So there are a number of different models we're looking at. But again, I just wanted to be very transparent about what this could look like and to manage expectations a bit in terms of it not looking like a pre-COVID classroom. Also, as Mr. Garofano mentioned, we're struggling with supply chain issues on individual devices. We announced that in the summer. So if our K-2 full day plan required or was dependent upon individual devices, that would not be able to happen at this time. But the plan, again, as I said, we're not ready to talk about details, might not involve that. But if we were just to take our hybrid learning plan and keep those children in school, that would require devices. So I just wanted to put that up there as one of the challenges we're looking at as well. So first, we're looking at all the health and safety and operational factors, and that's walking through the buildings again. We are very impressed by our students following the health and safety protocols. They really have been great in terms of limiting numbers of students in the bathroom, washing their hands, using hand sanitizer, and staying distant, following directions. So by October 13th, we plan to make that presentation at the board meeting in terms of what we found out just in that regard, because that's a precursor. That's got to happen first. If we can't meet that, that line, it really doesn't matter what we think about curriculum and instruction, because that space issue happens first. And so then by the end of October, our plan would be to have a full recommendation. It might be for 1 grade level, that we could handle 1 grade level full-time. It might be we could handle 2 grade levels full-time. Again, that would happen by the end of October. We're not locked into any one vision of this other than trying to do what's best for individual students, because as we started the presentation, we were talking about the feedback we're getting, and for some learners, this particular schedule that we have right now is working very well. So we just want to take all of that into consideration. But the earliest there would be any change to our current AM/PM schedule would be early November. So we will keep the board and the community updated as we move through this process. So with that, Alec, would you like to pause here for some board questions? Or I probably have only about 2 minutes more to give a quick update on health and safety as well.
That's fine. Go ahead and finish off your
Okay.
2 minutes, Victoria. Thank you.
So as I mentioned, our students are doing a great job. The 3 points that are so important to all of us, social distancing, masking, and hand washing, are really our key to prevention. If we maintain that, that will prevent us from needing to quarantine large numbers. For our 1 positive test, for our 1 staff member who tested positive, the question by the Board of Health was, who was less than 6 feet away from them indoors for 10 minutes or more? So that we want to make sure that the answer to that question is not many people. I'm also happy to report that although we did have one positive test, based on the information we have at this point, there's no indication that the COVID virus has spread to others in the district. So again, that gives us good information that our protocols are working. I think the difficult part, our students are very compliant, but now how do we move to, especially with our older students, how do we move from compliance to personal responsibility? Personal responsibility for stopping the spread. I know I get a number of phone calls, parents and community members telling me about the students walking to school together and they're too close and they're not wearing masks. So I think it's really going to just take that personal call to responsibility for all of us as we move into the colder months and move into flu season and are even more careful about that. I did send an email out this evening regarding the Easy Screen. It was awful timing for them to do an update last night and not tell us in time. So I apologize to everyone who scrambled this morning. In my mind, they have this week to get their act together because we always will have a backup plan, but they really have to show us that they can handle this app this week now, especially with this update. So please do read the update I sent out. Nothing changed on the computer. So if you are submitting your child's or your own health attestation on the computer, that didn't change, but you did have to update your app on your iPhone, and they are expecting to have an Android app out this week, and they also promise there will be less clicking. So I know they're working hard also and making some updates, but I know that doesn't help all of us when we're scrambling at 7 o'clock in the morning. Just one last update in terms of, I know I've had a couple of questions. Well, how would I make the determination on whether or not school needs to close based on the number of positive tests? That decision would be made in consultation with the Department of Health, and it would depend on the number of positive cases. As you know, one positive case, I'm sorry, not even a case, well, one positive test does not mean we have to close, but we would look at the number of positive tests, the location, whether it's a student, whether it's an adult, how many rooms they were in, what the community transmission rate is at the time. So there would be a lot of factors that would play into that. And again, the Department of Health have become my best friends. We talk every day. They've been very responsive. And that has been a big shift. They've been working with the superintendents of recent days, or certainly with me, with our situation very well. So with that, Alec, I'll turn it back over to you for questions.
Yeah, thank you, Victoria. All right. Ask any board members if they have questions. I guess we've got sort of three topics along there. So why don't we divide them up into the topics? So why don't we first start with any questions on the hybrid learning in that presentation? Does anybody have anything like to ask or say? Marquita.
Yeah, I'll just say that you know, I can totally understand the challenges at the younger levels because of exactly what you were talking about, Michael. But I would say that I've been getting tremendous feedback, and again, I have older kids, so it's a little hard for me to know at the younger level. But I've been getting tremendous feedback, grade 6 and up, from parents about both the approach, the rigor, and the students just being happy being back in school and being active, and you know, while the schedule is different, they've all settled into it. So I think that so far so good, and a great way to kick it off, and there's always room for improvement. So I just want to congratulate the district on kind of getting this started in a really positive note.
Anyone else from the board? Okay, good. I'd like, oh, go ahead. Sorry, Jennifer.
That's okay. I just wanted to comment that I was happy is maybe not the right word, but I appreciate that your recognition of the fact of how difficult it is to learn remotely, whether you're either in a hybrid situation or even more so fully remote. And so I'm reassured that you are taking it seriously and looking for ways to keep them engaged and learning, because especially for our kids who are full remote, who are not seeing teachers live at all, that's going to be crucial. So thank you for that.
Monica.
I just want to also comment that it's very easy for a parent to know what's best for their child. It's a whole nother thing for a district to do what is best for every child. And it's a daunting task. And we know that that's what is foremost in your mind, Victoria, and for all the staff. And we really appreciate you taking the time to consider, because it's not an easy answer anytime.
Anyone else from the board on this topic? So I just like to say, I think, first of all, it looks like we may have lost Jen Barella, at least in terms of being in the meeting. But again, I'd like to sort of, congratulate her and her peers and all the other teachers that are doing similar things on the work they're doing, and to echo so much for sharing this with us. I mean, normally when the board gets a presentation on something new that's being done in the district, that usually means like the beginning of the next year. It was new last year. Now they come in and give us a report on it, not 2 weeks into the middle of trying to figure out what's going on. So much for being able to sort of share that with us. I guess my question, but we can do for another time, would be, are there, and maybe Mike, maybe you can answer some of this, are there things that the teachers are seeing with this approach, with these tools especially, that they think may live on post-COVID, that they think might be of use to them when we're hopefully back in the not too distant future in a more normal?
Alec, the short answer is yes. I absolutely think that, we've all become better at what we do as a result of this. We've all been forced to reflect on what schools do well and under normal circumstances, and where we could stand to grow a little bit. All that stuff I was saying before about executive function and being an independent learner, for example. We recognize how crucial that is. I think we always did, but this has just really driven that home. What are we doing to develop kids' capacities to really be independent, to advocate for themselves, to organize themselves? This has really kind of thrown that into strict relief. In terms of tools, my God, I mean, the amount of learning that our teachers have done in the last 6 months is breathtaking, right? Like, I mean, people who were really very hesitant around technology are now like, oh, I'm doing a Meet, I'm doing this, and I'm doing that, I'm doing a Padlet, I'm doing, and it's all pretty sophisticated stuff. And so, we all have a few more arrows in our quiver as a result. And it's also, I think, just aside from just the tools, like I said, it's given us pause to kind of reflect on what are the things kids need to be successful in the 21st and even the 22nd century. This has given us a little peek into that world, and I think it's been helpful, although also scary. So I definitely think we will be, at some point, doing a more complete sort of presentation on sort of the lessons learned from COVID, and how that's really kind of changed our thinking about school and Edgemont.
Great, thank you very much. Okay, I guess we can move on next. Oh, sorry, Marquita.
It's just 2 more quick questions. Actually, 1 comment, 1 question. It would be great, Victoria, maybe at the next meeting or sometime, would be great to understand a little bit more kind of what the special education process is looking like during this hybrid model, and how we're supporting our learners who need extra support. And then the second question I had was, I know the biggest question has been around assessments. So I don't know if we've kind of made progress on figuring out how to do assessments during this process. I know I've spoken to a couple juniors who have anxiety about this being a very important grading year. And so would love to hear more about where we are on figuring that piece out.
Yes, those are two topics very much getting a lot of attention, and yes, we'll be happy to report out on those.
All right, anyone else on that before we move on to the next topic? So I guess the next topic was the assessment of what we might do with K through 2. So anyone have any questions on that? I mean, I think Victoria was sort of laying out just what the process is at this point, but yeah, if you have any questions on that, please. Yeah, Marquita.
So just two things on that. One, I know that, this is not a K through 2 question. This is a full school question in the sense that we're increasing the population of the entire school. We're changing cleaning protocols, et cetera. So I just want to kind of just point out that this is not just a K through 2 question. And so I appreciate the complexity around kind of making this decision. Are there any implications for the Y program or in terms of offering this, or do we need to take space back? I mean, what are some of the other things that might get affected by discussions around space?
So we'll go ahead, Eve.
Hi, everyone. I hope you can hear me okay. We've already begun to consider what we would do with the Y program if we were to go full time. And because some of the students in the Y program are catered to, we would be able to move the Y program to a smaller space to open up larger spaces for either grade levels of students, as Victoria described before, or an entire class of students. So right now at Sealy Place, the Y is in our lunchroom. And if we were to go full time, we would be able to move that caregiving service over to a smaller learning space so we could fit more students into the lunchroom. But absolutely, we are considering that. So thank you for bringing that up.
Pamela.
Just a question about the possibility of moving K through 2 to full day. If that were to happen, and I recognize there are a lot of things that go into making that decision, would it be then that the K through 2 kids would be either full-time or remote, or would they still have the hybrid option as a possibility, or would they be able to switch from one to the other? How do you contemplate that? I realize it's kind of early in the process at this point.
No, that's a great question, and I probably should have added it to those bullets of something that increases the complexity. So thank you for raising it. I do not see how we could take on an additional choice. So I think if we are able to go full day for any 1, 2, or 3 grade levels, we would still allow the parents to have the remote only choice, but I don't see how we'd be able to allow a half day choice. Part of the difficulty of the remote only, of managing the remote only learners for the teachers is that they are teaching and managing the children in front of them, teaching and managing the children remotely who will be in front of them the other half of the day, and teaching and managing those children who they will never see in person. So to add the complication of a full day in person, a remote only, and then a choice of a half day, I don't see how that would be possible.
Anyone else on that topic? Okay, thank you. Then I guess the last was just general health and safety. So anyone have any questions or comments on that? Okay, well, thank you very much. Appreciate the presentation. Very informative as always. The next item up on the agenda is, we've talked about giving a whole series of sort of small presentations on basically on the workings of the board to try and give the community a little more insight into sort of the full end-to-end what we do, not just sort of the tip of the iceberg that you see in these meetings. And we did have a presentation for tonight, but Judy Seif was going to give that, but she's unable to give that tonight. So we'll just push that back to the next meeting and potentially add on as well. But we'll just push that back for tonight. So we are now, I guess, up to second readings of the two policies that we have up. So we're going to have our same presenters, same order. So, all right, Pamela, you want to take first?
Yeah, okay, sure, great. So we've taken the opportunity since the last board meeting to give some more thought to the policy and how it's worded and that sort of thing, and taking into account some of the comments that we received from the community, as well as talking with our lawyers and amongst ourselves and so on. And the primary change that's been made is, I would say, that we have the language, some of the language has been narrowed and clarified, in particular relating to things like COVID protocols. Just reading from sort of the introduction, it says this code of conduct applies to all students, school personnel, parents, and other visitors when on school property or attending a school function, or when engaging in off-campus activity that has a negative impact on the health and/or safety of the school community. And later on, we talk about basically complying with COVID-related protocols established by the district in accordance with the New York State Department of Health guidelines. And so there are a couple of things that are informing this. I guess, first of all, one of the things that is, it's just super important is that the kids and the teachers and the other staff, that we focus on keeping them healthy and safe, okay? And part of that is that it's important that they feel safe. And so we are asking everyone to comply with the guidelines that the Department of Health has issued. When we talk in the Code of Conduct, we talk about specifically complying with COVID-related protocols established by the district in accordance with New York State Department of Health guidelines. So to be clear, we are not intending that it is somehow tighter than what the Department of Health is recommending. So for example, if the Department of Health says you can have 50 people at a gathering, we're not going to say, no, it can't be more than 10, okay? So it's really congruent with what's in the Department of Health guidelines. We do include it in there because we want to make sure that it is clear that we do expect people to, as Victoria said earlier, take personal responsibility for keeping everybody safe and healthy. And that is why this is in here. Now, someday, we hope, all this will go away and we won't have a pandemic anymore, or maybe we'll have a vaccine, or I don't know what, but at some point it'll be great when we don't have to worry about social distancing and we don't have to worry about masks and so on. But that is not where we find ourselves at the moment. And so, and we do look to New York State and the Department of Health for their guidance in these areas. And those were really the main changes that have been made since last time. There was a little bit of what I would call sort of technical cleanup and there remains still a couple of what I would describe as minor technical cleanup, not related to the COVID-related protocols or anything like that, but just sort of making the document internally consistent.
Great, thank you, Pamela. Any board questions or comments on that?
So I'll just make a small comment. So, you know, I don't know as a community how, or as an individual, how many of us really read the DOH guidelines. So in some sense, when our policy team has incorporated those recommendations, it would be good for everyone to actually read the code of conduct and become more knowledgeable about these issues. If I'm sure we are, but it's just a very good practice to just maybe just look at it and kind of have a good read at it. So thanks to Pamela and Jen for driving this.
Okay, anyone else on this policy? Okay, then Jennifer, you're up with
Certainly, and actually, Nilesh, I echo your comment. Code of conduct is actually important, and there is a bit in there about board expectations, but it's also a good thing to be familiar with. So, you know, get yourself a cup of tea, sit down. But the data privacy policy, really, the changes from first reading were technical instead of substantive. So for example, I guess the biggest one, there was one point where we cross-referenced another suggested draft, NISBA draft policy for the definition of PPI. And we decided it would just be simpler to block copy that text so that it would be there in the policy instead of referencing it and making someone go look it up. Then I think there were a few typos cleaned up, but other than that, it's unchanged. And as I said, that's really a change in, that's not a substantive change. So if anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
okay, before I have Victoria ask the question, I've been looking through the questions and comments from the public, and there is one specifically on the code of conduct. It's only fair to sort of address that one before we actually vote. So, and I have some thoughts on this, but Victoria, I guess after I read it, I'll let you take first shot at it. It says, no, although it is our policy. For this change in the code of conduct, it says, unless otherwise indicated, this code of conduct applies to all students, school personnel, parents, and other visitors negative impact on the health and/or safety of the school community. Can you give examples of what off-campus activities you're referring to? In addition, who makes the decision as to determining if the campus activity has a negative impact?
Yeah, so I'm happy to start, and then I would, I'm sure my secondary school colleagues can jump in as well. But so the way it's described in the law is that it has a nexus to the campus, right? So a good example might be cyberbullying. It isn't something that happens on campus. It's something that happens off campus. However, it does have a nexus. There is a problem because everyone knows what's happening, so the children are discussing it. It becomes part of an issue at school. So that's an example of when the school administrators would need to get involved with the conduct that took place off of school property. And in terms of who makes the decision, it's usually brought right to us, right? Either in the form of some sort of argument or fight, But it's usually brought to one of the administrators, or even possibly to a counselor.
Are there any other administrators that want to chime in on that?
I would just add on to what Victoria said, that if behavior isn't in line with guidance that we're receiving from the health department and from the state, it's probably a good sign that we would want to stay away from that. And the biggest thing is that we do want students to be able to get together, but we want them to do it safely. So to be outside when possible and to have masks on, sort of the same guidance that we're trying to send at school, just to keep everyone safe, is what we would hope for.
Okay. Yeah, so I guess my comment is, and I stressed this last meeting, I mean, our intent is to look after the to find problems. We're just trying to keep everyone safe. And, you know, there's a little bit, I can't define it, but I know it when I see it, kind of to this kind of situation. So every case would be decided. You should understand that just the way our school policies work in terms of discipline, before it would not be a situation where just, some parent called up and said, oh, I saw these kids doing this and now they're instantly, remote only or suspended, or anything more than just a potential sit down with an administrator. Anything more severe than that would happen. The whole process that's on, where they would tell their side. So this is not going to be something where somebody's just suddenly subject to, some severe punishment for something they didn't know was wrong. So, but again, we felt necessary in this environment to sort of to use common sense and to think about how what they're doing outside of school might affect the health and safety of the school community. Anything from anyone else? All right, with that, then I think we're ready to take a vote. If you'd like to present the question, Victoria.
Yes, thank you. I'd like to ask the board's approval, acceptance of the code of conduct and the information and data privacy, security, breach, and notification policies.
Okay, a motion to approve. I see Nilesh. I see a second from Marquita. All in favor? It is approved. Just a reminder for Rosemary that Judy is not present, so it's just the 6 of us. Thank you all very much. So we are now at the consent portion of the agenda. So as usual, I'll ask if there are any particular items that people would like either to question. Oh, sorry, am I missing something? Am I skipping something here? Or the question to comment on or take separately? Yeah, Jennifer.
I'd like to take A5 separately.
Okay.
Alec, just quickly, are we going to do
Oh,
the
sorry,
other
sorry,
community?
I5, not A5, I5.
Okay, I was looking for A5. I'm sorry, Marquita, what was you?
Are we going to look at the other community questions?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes.
Okay.
Thank you for reminding me. Absolutely. Sorry, I'll cycle back to those. Okay. So the first one is actually a comment from Dr. Good. And for those who don't know, he's a biology teacher at the high school. And he said, I'd like to thank the PTSA for the generous gift of Labster for the virtual science labs. Next comment. Very disappointed with Dr. Newell's recent letter on K through 2. It was previously stated that full day was expected. What changed? How can you expect K through 2 learners to log in remotely without full supervision? It is a disaster and our students are falling behind. Additionally, to date, including this week, first grade has 15 minutes total of Zoom time when not in school. This is not a realistic plan for success. We need the board and district to do better and get creative. Kids need to be in school while COVID rates are low in our area. Please help. Before I turn that over to the administration, I guess I'd just like to clarify one thing. It was never stated that full day was expected. It was always stated that it was something that would be looked at once school had begun. And, you know, we had some experience under our belt because, as Dr. Newell spoke about tonight, we do understand that it is more challenging for the younger ones when they're not in school full time. And that is why, as she put out, we are absolutely, you know, looking at it and working to see what can be done. But it was never stated that, you know, that was going to happen. It was just something that was aspirational and something that would be evaluated. Victoria, if you'd like to.
Yes, well, we do know that remote instruction is very difficult for young students, and that's why we discussed it this evening. That is something that we are also working on at the same time we're studying K2. As Mr. Curtin said, it's those skills, those learning behaviors, as well as just knowing how to even log in. And of course, at the kindergarten, at the lowest levels, the students aren't able to read, so they aren't able to see what's online. So yes, we absolutely do know that's a problem. We're working to get more staff involved with helping with that in the meantime. And yes, we are studying K2, and we have observed in numbers of classes in person, observed online at lessons, and are meeting individually and in groups with teachers as well.
Anyone else, either comments from the board or any other administrators that want to say anything on that? Next comment is very similar. It says the board needs to make a decision on K2 ASAP. People need to plan. Kids need to be in school full day. Please do the right thing. Get the kids back for full day. Again, I think the administration is moving as expeditiously as possible. This is not something anybody can make a snap decision on. This has got to be, if it's going to be done, it has to be done right. We can't do something that, again, endangers the health and safety of the community simply because certain parents want their kids back in full day, you know, as soon as possible. Even if we determine that it can be done, it has to be done in a time frame that we can make sure that everything is in place that needs to be in place to do it properly.
Can I just mention one other thing there, which is this, that just to make it clear, this is not a board decision. This is the administration figuring out what it needs to meet the educational needs of those students and also balance that against the health and safety needs of the school. So, and you know, it's certainly a balance, because even within K through 2, there are many people who actually really prefer the half-day schedule. So it is a really balancing of a lot of different questions and concerns, and we're building a new plane while flying the existing plane, which is a different looking plane than the plane we used to fly. So I mean, I think that it's a process, and I just ask people to be patient and knowing that we're trying to work to get to the best solution for the students and for the teachers.
Right, and thank you for pointing out again. I mean, this is again part of why we want to have that about the board role as Marquita just pointed out, technically, this is not anything to do with the board. Again, as always, we have an incredibly collaborative and looks for our opinion on everything, but it is not our opinion, and sorry, it is not our decision. We are what they feel is the best decision. Something says I may not be. Can you hear me, Snow? It's not working so well. Okay.
Hear you.
Okay, now you're breaking up a bit.
Every
Okay.
once in a while, you start breaking up pretty significantly.
Okay. I'll try and keep closer to the mic. See if that makes difference. Yes. No.
I'll do
Okay
this.
for now.
I'll do this when you can't hear me. Can you see my hand?
Yes.
Whatever you're doing, stop.
Okay. All right. Next question is on a different topic. It says, will there be a parent forum on remote learning now that the year is happening on the ground?
So I don't know that there'll be a specific parent forum on remote learning, but as we make our way through trying some new solutions for remote learning, we'll certainly be reaching out to those parents who have chosen that for their children.
It says New York City and other nearby districts are seeing a rise in COVID cases. Are we prepared for such a situation?
So we are prepared in terms of our ability to reduce our in-person schedule. We are prepared if we have to go fully remote. But we will take each step as it comes and continue to work with the Department of Health. But I think our teachers have certainly learned a lot in each scenario and will be ready to pivot and get that next step up and running if we have to switch.
Right. The next one is really just sort of more of a comment. It says, testing online is tricky. Not Monica, you want to read it then if you couldn't hear me or someone else off the, oh, you're muted.
All right. I'm sorry. Which one are we on here?
Testing.
The one that says testing online is tricky.
Yes, testing online is tricky, not easy, needs to be addressed.
So we know that the whole area of assessment is a very tricky one, to use the tricky. It's looking at assessment differently, right? It's looking at a number of assessments over time, and it certainly looks differently for our youngest learners. And in upcoming meetings, we'll talk about the work that our reading committee has been doing, as well as the work at the high school as they develop different kinds of assessments instead of traditional kind of high stakes tests. So yes, we continue to work on that and we'll share.
Okay, next one.
Sure.
Given the importance of teachers to the well-being of our children, can you enlighten us about the process used for granting tenure? Are there objective quantitative criteria used? Has there any evaluation been done on how successful we have been in tenuring the best teachers?
So I will begin with talking about the process. So tenure is actually a state law. By virtue of the fact of a teacher completing a probationary period, even if the district did nothing, they would be granted tenure. But the district does have a very robust probationary period and feedback system for even tenured teachers. It's regulated by law in something called the Annual Professional Performance Review. In Edgemont, we use a rubric called the NICET Teacher Practice Rubric, and it was developed in 2014, and it's very specific in terms of gradations of performance with specificity around all of the teaching standards developed by New York State. All of our teachers are observed by multiple administrators to receive feedback and to get formal observations. Also, we do get lots of feedback from students. We get feedback from parents. No one in Edgemont is really afraid to come tell us what they're thinking. So we do welcome that. In terms of how successful tenured teachers are, we know that the kinds of qualities we look for certainly translate as someone does learn and grow. We know that, in fact, we're looking at professional capacity and a lot of the professional development we do. We know that it takes different kinds of professional development depending upon where people are in their careers, and we continually look at that research, and our teachers are all continually involved in professional development. That's actually one of the teacher standards. So the teachers asking for feedback from their students is in the standards. Teachers engaging in professional development is in the standards. So yeah, they're held to a very high standard according to New York State teaching objectives and standards.
Okay. How are you educating students and parents that social distancing is necessary outside the school, including weekends? We are hearing many cases of around that weekend gatherings happen without social distancing or wearing masks, which increase the possibility of spread leading school going remote.
So I think it's been stated in practically every email I've sent. We've said it at practically every board meeting, and we now have it in policy in terms of the attention that's all are called upon to show personal responsibility, so that there is not a nexus with the school district, so that what's happening outside the school is not brought into the school. So we'll continue to communicate. We'll continue to have conversations with students about that, so that they make good choices outside of school that that allows them to continue coming to school in person, allows all students to continue to coming to school in person.
And this probably should have been read with the other one. Kids leave campus and almost immediately are walking hand in hand and not using masks. It's got to be a school and community effort to succeed.
So I'd say when you see that, it does take a whole community. Don't pick up the phone and call me and tell me that. Just roll down your window, say, hey, put your mask on, it's 6 feet.
Another comment, would be helpful to circulate the revised code of conduct.
So we will send that out, send the link out to all faculty, staff, students, and community. And I know that the high school administrators do circulate it to the students as well.
And one more question. Will EHS become a test center for College Board testing for SAT, SAT2, subject tests, etc.?
Is there someone on the call from high school who would like to answer that question? I don't have an answer for that.
So we are increasing testing options for students with the ACT, more SAT testing dates this year, knowing that so many of our students had tests that were canceled. In terms of what that's going to look like in the future beyond COVID, we have to talk more about that.
Thank you, Kyle.
That finishes the comments. Can you hear me better now? All right, great. So we'll thank you, Marquita, for keeping track. Now? Yes? No? Maybe? All right. I'll try and get through the next like 2 minutes. Besides I-5, are there any other items that people would like to ask questions, comment on, or take separately? Okay, Victoria, if you want to take everything on
Sure.
except for I-5.
I'd like to ask the board's approval of G, personnel, numbers 1 through 8, H, students, number 1, I, business, numbers 1 through 4, 6, and 7.
I have a motion to approve. Marquita, second. Pamela, all in favor? All right, those are all approved. Thank you. And now I guess I-5.
Resolved that, oh, let me get it here, sorry. So I'm not going to read this whole resolution. It's,
Victoria, let me spare you maybe a little bit. I'm intending to abstain. It's not that I have a question.
okay. So the resolution is the board giving authorization to approve a piggyback on Ardsley's transportation contract with anticipated cost savings.
Motion to approve. I see Marquita. Do I have a second? Nilesh, all in favor? All right, it's passed with 1 abstention. And that brings us to the end. So thank you all very much. Thank you for letting us start a little earlier. So those of us who want our blood pressure raised can now watch TV on no matter what side you're on. I think it'll probably raise some blood pressure. But our next meeting is on October 13th, and we will see you all then. Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Bye, everybody.
All right.
Hi, good evening, everyone.